Hey there, if you like my videos, you might also like my comedy web series YouTube Blue, which debuts with its first episode on January 2nd, with weekly episodes coming every Saturday. If you want to see that, click the link in the description to go over to the YouTube Blue official YouTube channel. Now on with the video. There have been many Doctor Who spin-offs, and for each one there's at least one other spin-off idea that never got off the ground. I even have a whole video on cancelled Doctor Who spin-offs. But somewhere out there lives one of the earliest Doctor Who spin-offs, and also one of the ones that was closest to getting made. But it's also one of the most obscure Doctor Who spin-offs, partly due to the scarce information on it and the fact that what was made of it is lost to time. Maybe forever. That spin-off was a 1966 attempt to adapt Doctor Who into a radio show, starring none other than Peter Cushing himself. The story starts in June of 1965, when the BBC received a phone call from a man named Richard Bates. Richard Bates had been a story editor on many TV shows in the past, the biggest one perhaps being The Avengers. A few years prior, he was even asked by Sidney Newman to be the producer of Doctor Who, but he declined this offer because he felt he wasn't experienced enough, and the job went to Verity Lambert. He had founded a radio production company in the UK called Watermill Productions a few years prior with Doug Stanley, a TV producer. He was calling to potentially buy a 6-month option for the radio rights to Doctor Who in order to see what the market for a Doctor Who radio series would be and making a pilot before potentially producing it at Watermill as a co-production with Stanmark Productions, Doug Stanley's own company that would handle international broadcast. In August, after a meeting with BBC General Manager at Television Enterprises, Dennis Skuse, things were looking good on getting that option and producing a pilot episode. All that was left was to first confirm that the BBC themselves had no intention of producing a Doctor radio show. It was determined that there wasn't, though there was some worry at the BBC about the ordeal for two reasons. One was that they were worried Doctor Who just wouldn't work as a radio show and relied too much on visuals. The other was that the show would be low quality and would slander the name of the BBC when broadcast outside the UK. At the time, there had been a bit of a string of BBC properties being adapted for radio in the US that were pretty low quality, and it was hurting the name of the BBC. However, it seems that no one with actual authority was worried about this, or at the very least, there's the old mantra in the entertainment business that you never lose money by saying yes, so they said yes and waited to see if the pilot was bad. The agreement for the 6-month option for business discussions and production of a pilot was signed by Watermill in January of 1966, giving them the option until the end of June, though it would be extended by a few months when it was clear the pilot was being made, but Watermill needed more time to market it for international distribution. Originally, Boris Karloff was in talks to play the Doctor, though he was sick at the time and staying in America. There were also talks with Robert Coote about playing him, but they fell through. They ended up going with Peter Cushing, fresh off of filming Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD. A pretty sound choice if you ask me. No other cast is known, as the little marketing material made for the series only marketed Peter Cushing and no one else. Once he was in the cast, production on the pilot could begin. The script, called Journey into Time, was written by Malcom Hulke, who classic Who fans may recognize as an iconic writer known for his Pertwee-era stories. He had previously been involved in the TV show, developing a few ideas for serials that never were produced, but it wasn't until after this pilot that his first television serial, The Faceless Ones, which he wrote with David Ellis, would be produced in Season 4. The radio series wouldn't be a part of the same continuity as the show. Similarly to things like the comics of the time and the Peter Cushing movies, they kind of retold the story of an unearthly child with variations. In the pilot, it's the same thing as the TV show of someone at Susan's high school discovering her and the Doctor, except instead of two teachers, it's a fellow student named Mike. Also, like other versions, the Doctor is actually Doctor Who. Also, you know how early Doctor Who writers were kind of confused as to whether the Doctor and Susan were aliens from another planet or humans from a future Earth, but their origin was vague enough that later they could say they were aliens, even though if you look back, you can sometimes hear lines that can be interpreted as being hints as being aliens, but clearly weren't meant to be hints at being future humans? Well, in this version, Malcom Hulke outright states that they are, in fact, from a future Earth. Also, similarly to how An Unearthly Child ends with the TARDIS taking off and landing in the year 100,000 BCE, Journey into Time ends with the TARDIS landing during the American Revolution, and Doctor Who, Susan and Mike are getting caught in the crossfire. The pilot had been produced and delivered to the BBC by July, with the reaction from the BBC being very positive. Ultimately, though, it was never meant to be. Originally, the plan was to market the show outside of the UK, however, it wouldn't end up selling. Clearly, the main market for a Doctor Who radio show was in the UK, which left them with two options: to get Light Program to buy the series for broadcast in the UK, or to sell the series to Radio Luxembourg, which also broadcast to the UK. However, Dennis Morris, the chief of Light Program, thought that the series was too dull and outdated to be picked up by them, and that having a radio Doctor Who while another actor was on TV might confuse people. However, the BBC also would not grant Stan Mark's request to offer the series to Radio Luxembourg. This rejection came in May of 1967, and after that there was basically nowhere to go with the project. There were plans to produce 52 25-minute episodes in total, with potential for more, but this never happened, with Stan Mark's rights formally expiring in September of 1968. When Stan Mark Productions folded in 1972, their copy of the pilot was thrown out. Since then, the script for the pilot has been discovered, though the pilot itself has not. We know that at least 2 copies were made, and there was also a re-edit of the pilot done by Watermill following Light Program's rejection, so that could be out there too. So there's still a chance this could be recovered, but we'll have to wait and see. If you want to read the script, it's published in issue 3 of the Nothing at the End of the Lane magazine. Beermat Productions also has since adapted the script for a reconstruction, which is pretty well done. Would you have liked to have a Doctor Who radio show to listen to, or at least a pilot? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for daily videos on the franchises you love, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.